Welcome to T-Bone Speaks with Dr. Tarun Agarwal, where our goal is to change the way you practice dentistry by helping you achieve clinical, financial, and personal balance. Now, here's your host, T-Bone.
And I want to thank you guys. Today we are going to be talking about a recent experience with CE I had where I took an IV sedation training program and with docs in Lexington, Kentucky. So I want to talk through some of that. And I also want to apologize for missing a week. There's a good reason. Well, it's a logic. I mean, there's a story.
We'll kind of get into it.
It's a story behind it. So we'll talk about that in next week's episode. But this week I want to get caught up on from 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, from you being the student for once.
Yeah. So let me turn it over to Meredith, and she's going to give you our weekly update.
Hello, everyone. I have a couple things before we get started. I have a review. So if you haven't left us a review, log on to Apple Podcasts and leave us.
Or Spotify even.
I listen on Spotify. I'd prefer a 5-star review, but whatever you've got to give.
Yeah.
This one is from Josh Hudson. He says, this is one of the best dental podcasts. It's one of the better dental podcasts out there. T-Bone is a smart and practical person to listen to on changing your practice for the better. But even more important for a podcast, he's likable and entertaining. Would your team believe that after this past couple weeks? His recommendations are helpful and wise to implement, and I feel like he is more transparent than other podcasts in how he feels a practice should change for improvement.
Wonderful. Who is that again?
Very kind. Josh Hudson. Is he
Josh
real?
Hudson, I want to thank you. That was like a heartfelt review.
Yeah. We've gotten some good ones lately. A lot of people listening on their commute, so I think traffic's coming back. I just want to add also in the world of 3D, we have added a 3D printing course in December, which is likely to sell out because we did this in August and it was a hit. It's a pretty cool class. That's with Sully Sullivan.
All right, well, perfect. So let's get into today's episode. And I took an IV sedation training program. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while. And my buddy, John Poshisnitz, JP, who also teaches with us here at 3D, texted me one day, said, hey, dude, I'm taking this. He didn't really say dude.
Yeah,
but
maybe he did.
Not on text. He says, I'm taking this IV sedation training program. You should come with me. And I said, are there any seats left? And he said, yeah.
You were hoping for no.
No, I wanted to go. And then so I signed up, and so that was awesome. So let's talk about it, Mary.
Yeah. So we have been doing oral sedation in the practice. Yeah. But what are benefits of sedation?
Yeah.
Like, why would somebody want to do sedation in their practice?
Yeah. So let's talk about sedation from that perspective, because I've shared this slide before. When I speak, I've surveyed the dentists and the team members in the audience, and only about 25% of the practices that participate in any of our programs are offering sedation services. Yeah. And I'd like to get a little bit deeper with that now, find out who is offering it regularly. And to me, regularly would be at least once a week.
Right.
Would be regularly. And I think that number would drop significantly there. So the first question is why have sedation, And I look at it as sedation is a phenomenal practice builder. And I know I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but number one, it opens up your practice to a market that's probably not being served, namely in the high anxiety patients. Number two, and that wasn't a goal for me. When I first took it, actually, when I first started offering oral sedation, I took the Docs Oral Sedation Program in 2001 or 2 in Dallas, Texas. And I was at that point, I was brand new practice, essentially, and I was just trying to get some patients. And so I read some of their articles from Michael Silverman, some of the articles and stuff, and he talked about how you can tap into a whole new market and build a practice. And I was like, I'm in. And then, but like with everything else, my mindset was I'm going to build a whole practice around sedation. And that was going to be the magic bullet. And it didn't turn out to be the magic bullet, but it turned out to be a bullet in our arsenal. And so we took the program. I did well with it. We offered it, and I did some marketing for the high fear patient. And personally, I found pretty quickly I didn't like that. I didn't like deal. I don't mind
Attracting the high fear patient.
right. I didn't like.
Nervous patients that are nervous about surgery.
I have patients that are nervous, and that I just didn't. There's something about the high anxiety patient that that just didn't fit well with what I was trying to build. But I decided to continue to offer sedation in our practice, and I would selectively offer it to people in the very beginning. And what I found was more and more people were very interested in having sedation, especially when they found out it was a pill and not a needle.
Right.
And so oral sedation has, in the beginning, was a selective offering that we offered to patients when we did larger cases or when patients mentioned that they were afraid of the dentistry. And then slowly but surely it became one of those things that we generally talked about, and we started offering it more and more because people were asking for it. We put signs up. We did some internal marketing around sedation. And then probably about 2007 or so, 6, 7, somewhere in that ballpark, I made a decision that any procedure over 3 hours was going to be sedation. And we would just build that into the fee because I didn't like working on people awake for 3 hours
Fancy.
and checking the 2 hygienists and making patients feel like they're waiting and stuff like that. So we just started building it in. And when I first started implementing sedation, I used to do it on Fridays only because that was my day off. And then slowly we moved it into a regular work day. And, we've been doing oral sedation since then. And I never thought I would have a need for much more than oral sedation until we got into more surgical procedures. And what I found is oral sedation is phenomenal for longer procedures. I found that it's really good for longer procedures.
So the benefits of sedation we have from a patient standpoint, time and fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then from a business standpoint, what would you say, how has it helped your practice?
Oh, because we're doing more dentistry.
The patients are more receptive.
Yeah, a lot of patients. It's very easy. We say this all the time. It's very easy when we're talking to be like, Meredith, I know we've got a few areas we want to talk about. You've mentioned that you have some, you have a little bit of anxiety. Nobody really loves being at the dentist. Totally get it. One option available for us is to consider sedation. And we're happy to look at sedation. There's a small fee associated with it. But Meredith, if you don't mind me suggesting, if we're going to look at doing sedation, we might as well go ahead and consider knocking out everything. So that way you only have to be sedated one time. And almost 80% of the time, they're like, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then suddenly insurance isn't an issue.
Right.
Suddenly,
they forget how much it costs. Put me on a payment plan,
right,
make it work.
Because we've given them a benefit for it.
Right.
So I found it from that perspective. From a business side, it also reduces a lot of stress for me. I don't when I have a sedated patient, I don't stress out about running behind. I don't stress out about hopping over to the next room to do my hygiene checks, or maybe there's a limited exam that pops in that I need to do a quick bite adjustment or something on. So from a business side of view, it's great. I don't look at sedation as it's a revenue producing line item itself.
Right.
We only charge $250 for oral sedation
Service.
in our practice, and I know we should probably charge more, but for me, quite frankly, it's more
The convenience.
It's more about me
Yeah.
than the patients.
I would say our office has the systems down for oral sedation. No problem. We do it very regularly.
Yeah.
Everyone in the office would almost prefer it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You take the patient back. They don't have any questions that day. You've already answered everything.
Yeah.
They can
Money's been taken care of.
Right. Everything's set up. They have a ride. You just call when the ride is over. So
and you just wheel them out.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Just wheel them
right
out.
down the ramp.
Buckle them up
Literally.
and call it a day.
Yeah, literally buckle them up and call it a day. So what took you so long to do the IV sedation, seeing as the oral sedation was working?
Yeah, so the only negative
besides the peer pressure.
Well, it's been on my list for many years. The only negative I'm going to get to oral sedation or give to oral sedation are a few things. One is some patients will arrive sleepy and you're literally ready to go to work.
Yeah.
Some patients will take 30 to 40 minutes to get sleepy-ish.
Yeah.
Some patients will take an hour and a half or so to get sleepy-ish, and some patients just won't
Right.
get sleepy.
So the unknown that's there.
A little bit of unknown.
Yeah.
Certainly that's absolutely part of it. And then it can be a schedule disruption if suddenly we anticipate, we allocate about an hour of time for the patient to get ready to do dentistry. And again, 70% of the time that's more than adequate. But then it can be a disruption when it takes longer to get somebody to the point where they're, mentally ready to let us do the work on them. So that was one challenge for it. And then the other challenge was I'm not so aggressive where I'm willing to give people a lot of medication and get them too deep.
Right.
Because with oral sedation, you can't really titrate it. And so you give it to them, everybody's going to have a different effect. The same patient will have a different effect each time they come in. So I had a little bit of hesitation and fear about getting them too deep. And there are times where I'm like, God, I really like this patient to stop moving, or for them to have a better experience, because they are expecting, sedation, even though we tell them they probably won't go to sleep. So some of that fear was there. That was some of the negatives of oral sedation and why I wanted to provide IV sedation. There are two main reasons I didn't do IV sedation. My first 10 years of my career, it was an economic issue. It was a $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 program. So from the cost perspective, it's an expensive program. And then the second part of it was the time commitment. It was all the programs I looked at the time were 3-4 weekends, multiple weekends over 3-4 months.
Yeah.
And that took time away from the office, which cost money. And then also for me, with my speaking schedule at the time, it just didn't, like 2 of the 3 weekends would fit, but the third weekend wouldn't fit, or 3 of the 4 weekends, and then this one wouldn't fit. And it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And then so when docs released their program, where it was a hybrid where you would do all the didactic component online and through Zoom. This was pre-COVID even, they were doing this. And then you would go in and do 4 or 5 days of all your live patient work, and I did 21 sedation cases on real human beings and did real dentistry on them. It made sense. And I didn't balk at the fee, and it's a little expensive. It was like $17,000-$18,000, I think. Someone that was 17 or 18, I paid for it. So I jumped at the chance, and frankly speaking, COVID is the reason I could go, because we had classes scheduled, all kinds of speaking events, different things that got canceled.
Right.
So my calendar freed up. So I wanted to take advantage of going, and that's really the reason. It just didn't fit. Initially, it was a money issue, and then it just didn't fit into my life, and circumstances made it to where a solution was available. To give them a lot of credit, a solution was available for a common problem, and the stars aligned for me to go do it.
Yeah. So you left on Tuesday.
Yeah,
you
I left
worked
on
until
Tuesday.
like 3.
Of course.
Took 2 assistants. You guys stayed until Sunday.
Yeah, so we stayed. I didn't, when I signed up for it, I was like, oh, it's a few days. I didn't add it up. It was 5 hotels: Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. So it was 5 nights in the hotel, which is fine.
Just felt like you were gone forever.
It did feel like I was gone forever.
You guys were tired when you got back. So the experience, though, overall was good. A lot of the busy work was done before you got there.
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you, the experience was amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, look, I look at everything with a few different eyes. Okay. So my first eyes, I'm looking at it as a attendee, as a dentist that wants to learn a technique and actually put it back into practice. That's one aspect of it. I'm also looking at it as a person, as a competitor, as a person that we do oral sedation training at 3D Dentists with Dr. Brian McGue. So as a competitor, I'm looking at what they're doing and how they're doing it. And then as a business person, I'm just looking at the business overall. So I got to be honest, they did a phenomenal job. I mean, they're clearly, they've got their stuff together. Dr. Fack is phenomenal. Dr. Wilson was phenomenal, and Dr. Combs are fantastic. They were three different personalities from each other that had specific roles within the program, and they provided a first class experience. And when they say they were long days and it was no joke and it was long and you worked hard, they weren't joking.
Yeah, you had to get those sticks.
Yeah, so we went in every day at so the way it works is 4 days. Day one is ACLS. And getting prepared for the clinical days. Day 2, 3, and 4 are the clinical days where you're actually doing dentistry and doing sedation on patients that they provide for you. So each day started at 7 or 7:30 and ended. Our earliest finish was 6 o'clock. Our latest finish was 8:30. So
that's bedtime for you.
For me, they were 100% was bedtime. So they were long days. But Tony Feck did phenomenal. I've met him before briefly, but I got to spend some time with him. He has in my opinion, a very great demeanor. I couldn't get him to. I couldn't get a reaction out of him. He was so. It wasn't like
proper.
No. It wasn't that he was proper. It was just. I couldn't get him to get mad. That's what I mean by that. I couldn't get him to like, all right, dude, shut up.
Yeah.
I couldn't get him to do any of that stuff. And then Carol Wilson was fantastic, and Maxie Combs. They were just so good. They were so nice and so welcoming and supportive. And the other thing is I want to talk about on that is it gave me a newfound respect for live patients. From an attendee perspective. So, we do as obviously, I hope you know, Meredith, we do our live patient this year in 2020. We started our live patient training program for dental implants, our digital implant continuum. And so we provide live patients for people and they work. And, I always be like, why do people work slower? And then I didn't get it until I went through it again myself in Lexington, and I'm like, man, something about working in somebody else's office, something about the pressure of
not your patient,
not my patient,
right?
Not my equipment, being around other colleagues and feeling judged, being judged by the instructors, failing at things.
Keep going.
Yeah. So
everybody loves hearing this. This is the real stuff.
But it was really it was eye-opening for me. I've been built up, or I believed the hype that I'm so good at everything, and frankly speaking, I sucked at this. But they worked with me. They pumped me up a little bit because after day one of clinic, I was pretty defeated. I don't know. Did I text you?
No, but I saw JP posted the numbers, and I was like, ooh. Some of them were like double.
I was in last place because I.
That's the only reason he posted it, by the way. You know that, right?
No, probably.
He was in the lead, I think.
He was. But it was humbling. It was such a humbling experience for me and the patients. Oh my, this poor one. She sticks in my head. I remember her. I don't remember her name, but I remember her. I tried 10 times.
She probably remembers you too.
To get that IV started, and I couldn't do it. I mean, oh my God. I couldn't do it.
Poor lady. She didn't know what she signed up for. She thought she was going to get one stick.
And then the next person went in there and got it on the first try. And it just defeated me. And so, but to the patient's credit, they knew what they were there for. Many of them had been there before, and they were like, "Hey, we're just here to help." And when I missed, I had some of the patients say it's okay. The other ones missed too in the last class.
They're like your little cheerleaders.
Yeah, and so it was awesome. It was really, and part of it was we were giving back to, because most of these people, frankly speaking, the dentistry was free to them, and a lot of them couldn't afford it, and they were so grateful, and I was great. I told every one of them, "Thank you for being." Thank you for allowing us to work on you and being part of this experience for me. It was awesome. And I think I took 2 assistants. They require to bring one. I brought 2. I'm super happy I bought 2. I think everybody that took 1 in retrospect wishes they had 2. You can get by with 1, but 2 was better. I think they had a good experience. I think they weren't prepared for the long days, as either was I.
Yeah.
But we made it through. The days went by well. It was a great experience. I mean, I can't say anything really negative about it, other than there's no nonstop flight to Lexington, Kentucky.
Well, that might just be right now because of COVID.
No,
times.
there wasn't even before
before.
COVID. There wasn't a nonstop.
So we talked about kind of the pros and cons of oral sedation.
Yeah.
What difference is IV sedation going to be for your practice?
Well, that's a good question, Meredith. I think, I think I got to look at why I want to do IV. Number
Right.
one is as I do more surgical cases, I need my patients to be asleep for 20 or 30 minutes. And I can't predict that time with oral sedation,
Right.
as I mentioned.
Yeah.
But with IV, I can deliver the medication. It works in 3-4 minutes, and I can have them out. If I'm going to be, if I'm working on something, I need to go a little deeper for a little bit of time. I can do that. So it gives me a lot more control, and it's just more control. And frankly speaking, we're doing more surgical cases. When I refer to IV sedation, it's for my short surgical cases. 30 minutes to an hour and a half would be something. 30 minutes to 2 hours would be something I would be comfortable doing
Sedating.
IV sedation
Yeah.
for on relatively healthy people. That was the other part of the experience, by the way. We didn't work on just healthy people. We worked on some obese people, some recovering drug addicts, some recovering alcoholics, diabetics, some ASA class 3s.
That you may not be treating in your office.
Oh, some of them I definitely wouldn't have treated in my office.
Because one of the reasons I was thinking was the convenience. We have been doing some IV sedation, but you've been bringing somebody in. And from what I see, we're having to work around their schedule. You're having
around
to
the
work
provider's schedule,
right.
yeah.
So whoever's coming in to administer the IV, you've been having to work around their schedule because they're not available when you
it's
would prefer to
unfortunate.
do the surgeries, right? So this will help too.
Yeah. So that part of it is I want to be able to
Right.
have deeper sedation for a short period of time on my surgical cases. I jokingly say this, but my North Raleigh house moms
Yeah.
are the ones that need the IV sedation.
The wives of North Raleigh,
that
yeah.
need the sedation for the single extraction, bone graft, implant placement. That they want the sedation for that, and so I want to get them out. That's one aspect. The other aspect, and it kind of brings in another part of this, is we've been doing IV sedation in our practice, but I've been bringing in an anesthesia person
Right.
to do it. And as you mentioned, it was on their schedule.
Right.
In other words, we would either pre-book a date and I'd be on the hook for that date, or we'd find the patient and then say, all right, let's check with the anesthesiologist and when we can do
6 weeks later.
Like we got a double arch case that we're doing that we can't get in till second week in November, and this was a month ago we booked it, right?
Right.
So so those are part of it, and but that leads into kind of the different types of the sedation we're offering in our practice, because I want to give a shout out to docs, and I want to thank them for a phenomenal experience. Again, I did pay for the program. Happy to pay for the program. I don't want anybody to think that there's anything like that going on. But I also I want to encourage people to get sedation trained. Oral sedation, selfishly, I know Docs does it as well, but selfishly, we provide a great oral sedation program here in Raleigh, North Carolina, with 3D dentists. We'd love to have people attend that.
We do have a few openings left for November,
November,
6th and
yeah.
7th.
Thank you. Good job, Meredith.
I do know when I have to work.
And then, but I want people to continually expand. It's just my thing, and I part of me felt like a little bit of a quitter or a failure, because I've been wanting to do IV, but I haven't done it. And the other thing I didn't mention, I'm afraid of doing the sticks on people. Like, I know we do PRP and PRF,
Yeah.
but I don't do the sticks.
I was going to say that. I was going to mention that, is that you don't, for somebody who gives needles all day to inject, you really don't like needles.
I don't like getting them.
Yeah.
I don't really like giving them.
Yeah.
There's something different about doing it in the mouth versus doing it in the on the arm.
Vein.
because you don't really miss necessarily. You know, trying
That's
to
true.
you can miss. We
Yeah.
can miss blocks, but you know, you're not trying to hit a certain spot.
Right.
Like if I miss, I mean, it's not going to work. We can be in
Like
the
that
general
time
area.
your arm swelled up and
Yeah,
you were
like
getting
that
that.
time I was getting my own IV
Yeah.
infusion. But yeah, so in our practice, so let's talk about this. There are 3 types of sedation, generally speaking. Okay, there's oral sedation, which we'll call minimal sedation. There's IV sedation, which is moderate sedation, and then there's general anesthesia, which is lights out.
Hospital.
Yeah,
type.
well,
Bringing someone
like
in,
lights
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Okay, so in our practice, we've been offering all 3 for the last 4 or 5 years or so.
Yeah.
In the sense that we did oral sedation in facility. And then if a patient needed IV, we would go to my surgeon's office and do it there until we had the Surgical Center for Dental Professionals built a year and a half or so ago. And then we would go there. And then when patients that needed general anesthesia for our really large and complicated cases, we would go to my surgeon's office or go to the SCDP and do the cases there. So we've been offering it. And then starting this year, I was bringing Dr. Henderson in to do IV and general anesthesia in the practice, and he had a mobile service that came in and did it. So there are 3 different types of services, and again, I like to talk about how I break it down. To me, and I know some people are going to think it's overkill. General anesthesia for us is every full arch implant case is prepared for intubation general anesthesia, where the patient's lights out. It's my preference. It gives me control.
Except for that one time you did it in front of 10,000 people with no sedation.
That's no sedation. Yeah.
Just that one time, though. No big deal.
That's 7,000, not 10,000.
No big deal.
Or the time a month before that, I did it in San
Yeah.
Francisco in front of a few hundred. And then we did IV sedation. IV sedation was one of those things where we just didn't offer it a lot because it was complicated. I had to go somewhere or bring somebody in.
Yeah, and
So
it
we-
wasn't really worth the.
It wasn't worth it to me.
cost.
Yeah, we had patients because it'd be anytime I bring the anesthesia person in and go somewhere else, it's $2,000 to $4,000.
Thousands, yeah.
And so we pass that along to the patients. And a lot of patients said, "No, I'm good.
Yeah.
I just need a tooth taken out." I'm
Right.
like, "Okay, well, I totally understand."
Yeah.
And then oral sedation for us has been really for general dentistry. I still think for general
Right.
dentistry, oral sedation is fantastic. It works unbelievably well. But as we get into more surgical work, we need the IV sedation, and as we do advanced surgical cases, we need the capabilities of general anesthesia. Now, when it comes to the practice, I've always from day one, and it's not a requirement, but I've always required a physician's clearance for oral sedation. So if the patient doesn't have a physician, I would make them see a physician. I didn't override it. I didn't make it like, "Oh, you're good, Meredith, you're great, you're
Yeah.
healthy." Nonetheless, I wanted
Yeah.
a physician's clearance just to CYA.
Even if they just went to the urgent care.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever they went in. So, so I always required that. So in our practice, we'll still do that for IV sedation. And my intention with IV sedation is to not tackle unhealthy individuals or involve surgical cases. So in other words, I don't want to be the one administering the meds, monitoring the patient, and doing complex, surgical dentistry where my focus needs to be on the dentistry I'm doing. I don't want to be stopping,
Thinking about-
dropping meds, thinking about hearing the patient, oh, this is going on. So we'll continue to bring Dr. Henderson in and use the surgical center for complex cases medically and surgically. So that way we can have somebody monitor that for us, even if it's just IV.
Yeah.
Because we've done some IV cases with Dr. Henderson. So we'll do that, but I want that middle of the road.
Yeah.
Somebody that's quick, wants it a little bit deeper. I want to have more tools in my tool belt.
Yeah, I think this is a huge barrier for some patients.
Yeah,
and
absolutely
I think
it
it's
is.
going to make a big difference in
Yeah.
what we offer, jumping from oral sedation to the IV sedation.
Yeah, so now it's a matter of waiting for, I got to take my final exam.
It's like being back in college.
Yeah, so listen, they did such a good job. They had the pre-course work. You had to do tests. You had to do some things. You had to turn that in before you could attend the clinical session. At the clinical session, we did the ACLS test. We did our minimum 20 patients. And then we have a final exam that we have to take to get all of our paperwork in order. And then I have everything ready. I've already written out the check to North Carolina Dental Board, got the paperwork filled out. I'm just waiting for my ACLS card and my sedation paperwork so that we can submit it all to the board. So hopefully by the end of 2020, we'll be able to provide IV sedation, physically actually provided in the office. So I'm super excited. I'm not excited about doing my first sticks again.
Yeah.
So, but outside of that, I'm pretty good.
All right. Well, do you have any T-Bones tips for anyone who's wanting to get into sedation?
Yeah. So again, if you're looking for, I think a great first step for any traditional general dentist, a great first step is going to be oral sedation. It is easy to administer. It is safe. It is perfect for traditional general dentistry.
It gets you comfortable with it.
Yeah, and
it
it gets you and your team
too.
Comfortable with it. And it was interesting to me. My team was more worried about the sedation than I was, because I'm like, dude, it's no different than oral sedation, except it's safer and it's
quicker.
It's a much more controlled route of administration. Right. So that part was there. And then I would suggest people learn to add IV sedation to their practice. And then you need to have services. So I believe that it's great to go ahead and have a local resource, anesthesiologist or surgical center or whatever it is, where you can have those services for your patients, and for patients are willing to pay. I mean, patients absolutely are willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
So.
And I think if you're placing implants and not doing sedation, there'd be a huge increase in implants.
Yeah, if you're wanting to do more
sedation.
surgical dentistry, I think, if you're not offering sedation to every one of those patients,
right,
you're missing out on cases. Patients aren't telling you they're afraid.
Right.
They're not going to tell you they're afraid. And so to me, it's massive. It's a real practice builder for your practice. So if you're considering IV sedation, I highly recommend the DOCS program. If you consider oral sedation, I highly recommend the 3D Dentist program and the DOCS program. I'm going to be honest about that. We hope at 3D Dentist with Brian to be able to offer IV training. It's a goal for late 2021, early 2022 is probably more realistic. And we're super excited for it. So anything else, Mayor Bear?
I think that's it for this week.
Thank you, guys, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to miss a week. Next week, we'll kind of go over why I missed a week.
Where in the world is T-Bone?
No, it's just why I missed it. So everybody have a great day. Thank you for your reviews. Thank you for your support. And stay safe. And let's make 2020 a good year despite all the stuff that's happening. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening to T-Bone Speaks with Dr. Tarun Agarwal. Remember to keep striving for excellence, and we'll catch you on the next episode.